Hello, everyone. Please allow me to welcome all of you to our webinar as a part of the international workshop for the global strategies for local tourism. Today, our webinar is the topic of the future city for the tourism, resilience for the post-pandemic world. And the next activity is going to be the panel discussion that will consist of several university and also professor from our team in the international workshop. Please allow me to give the introduction for our moderators. Professor Els Hannes, she graduated and received her PhD in transportation science, and her current career is about the international coordinator of the Faculty of Architecture and Arts of Hasselt University, and she has a lot of the international experience to run for the parallel design studios with Tanzania and Vietnam. That's why this opportunity brings her to participate this workshop together with us with the global strategy for local tourism workshop. Please give her a big hand to welcome Els for the moderate our section. Okay, Els, this floor is on your own.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction, Pauwini. I'm very happy to be the moderator of this very interesting webinar. And I'm going to give you a brief overview to start with of what we're going to do today. So we will have 5 very interesting, short, intense presentations from 5 professors. First up is Tuan Trinh from Ton Duc Tang and formerly Ton Duc Tang and now director of ISCM. And she will talk about the topic from staycation to resilient tourism. Then next, we will hear Professor Tuxu Seo, and he will talk about urban and architectural design for tourism in a changing world. The next up is Professor Biep Leefhoets, and she will explain heritage and tourism and mention notions and examples of urban regeneration. Next is Professor Oswald Davis. He will talk about participatory design and local tourism. And then finally, we have Ms. Pianut Siri and her assistant, and they will talk about urban planning at Bangkok metropolitan area in Thailand. So we will have a very nice overview of different angles on this topic of resilient tourism in a global, in a post-pandemic world. After these 5 presentations, there will be moderated, curated questions directed to the panelists. So I will ask the panelists different questions to start with, but at the same time, students and participants, attendees can start posting their questions in the chat box. And the chat box will be, and the Q&A box will be operated by my colleague Peggy Winkels. And after the first round of questions to the panelists, we will ask some of the questions of the students to our panelists as well. And we hope we will probably not be finished discussing this interesting topic, but we hope to close the session, this webinar, at around 11. So this is our interesting schedule for today. And we're going to kick off with the first presentation. I would like to invite Professor Tuan. Let me explain a little bit more about her. Dr. Tuan Trinh is the director of the Institute of Smart City and Management of the University of Economics in Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. And she teaches and she leads local and international courses. She does research, and there are projects on smart city, urban and transportation planning, road safety, project management, and also aviation operation. And her topic is from staycation to resilient tourism. I hope that Viet manages to get the presentation running and that Tuan is ready to present. Yeah, there's the first slide. Tuan, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you very much, Els, for your nice introduction. I'm feeling very happy to be here to share with you the one topic that I think that we want to inspire everybody to thinking how we make it the resilience tourism and how we get the reaction during and after the post-pandemic work. So my topic we want to share today, and I hope that it's going to be helpful. So 2020 is really, I think 2020 is really terrible for all of the people around the world. So we also can see that the world is closing, and we don't know when will be when will end. Okay, sorry for some technical issues. So we really don't know when will be end. We also estimate that in the end of 2020, we will have some positive impact from the pandemic, but it still keep the world closing. Like example, like Vietnam, we sometimes we feel like we can manage the pandemic. We also want to open the border, but of course we cannot do this one because that the impact is really increasing. And how long we can endure with that issues. And now a lot of the restaurant and also hotel and also the other local economic and local shop have been closing. Because before we also had a lot of the tourists and also all of the beautiful beach. Now we don't have any people. So also that we have to get the limitation from everything for the normal life, but our demand is there. So one of the important demand is the traveling. So if we cannot go anywhere, but we still have the traveling demand. So how do you do? And the traveling is a lot got the contribute for the quality of life of the people. So what do we do with that one? So with the pandemic, we also say like, okay, this pandemic maybe can end it this year, but we never know that it's going to be happen maybe the next year. And the other one, it may be longer. So what do we do and how do we do? And when during the pandemic, we still have the demand. So what do we do and what do we want to satisfy our demand? So I think from the point of view of the designs and also the planning and also the architecture, we also have to give a different point of view to think, and to only two things. One, we have to make a new destination or new creativity for satisfy the demand. Or the second thing, we also have to change our lifestyle. So we look backward to see for the tourism impact in not only the Vietnam and also in the world. Before the COVID-19, every country concentrate and focus on the mass tourism. It means that more crowded mean more money and more development. And we also get a very strong impact, like right now when we lacking of the tourists. So the local economic will be facing with a very big problem and issue. And the most important thing impact to the people from the city, because we live in the city, but now we want to get out to the city and we want to connect with the nature, but we impossible sometimes. Our question to give that now is really the time that we can have a new idea to make a transition from the mass tourism become to resilience tourism to deal with not only this pandemic, it's also the future pandemic. So what do we do? What should we do? We also thinking that we have the different type of the city that can manage and can reduce for the negative impact from that we got into. The first one we propose that the hospitable city. For this, the hospitable city is also applied for the develop the local economic in the social area and the public area and make it more creative and more effectively for the local economic, and also it make for connect to the society of the community. So for that one, from the point of view of the designer, for the architecture and for the urban planner, we also have to see that we have to see edge impact expect that we also have to see that how we can change to make more hospitable city, like an outdoor space and building, how it had to be changed during the pandemic or after that, and it had to be very flexible open space that can turn in during the pandemic or turn back when the pandemic is gone, or how to make the connection, how to do the transport and connect from the building to the building and to this function to the other function. And also like how we can engage the people, like the social participation. Like example, like some developing country like Vietnam or Thailand, we always go with our usual life, we go to the markets. So now is during the pandemic, how do we do and how we can manage with that one. And the next city type that we also want to promote is the smart city. The smart city here we mentioned is not only about the technology, because we consider the city like the human body. So when you are growing up and you are working, it will be happen a lot of the issue. So the city it could be like this. The smart city will be like you have the proposal, you have the solution to do with the to solve the urban issue that maybe happen with by applying efficiently technology towards sustainable development. So it means that smart city development will be very different from the city to the city, because it depends on the people characteristics. It also depends on the human resources and also the other budgets and also how we can link it in the infrastructure. So for the we are talking for like when we facing with the human destruction or the pandemic, what do we should do? So we also want to highlight to revitalizing the urban space for a better quality of life. Like everybody needs to go out and everybody needs to connection and need to connect with the natural landscape to make the balance and to make the better quality of life. So we also thinking about the staycation. Staycation is not like only the one tool that can apply to contribute for the tourism resilience, but it's also another hand that we also can promote for the new staycation, that we also can apply some benefit impact from the staycation to contribute for the tourism resilience. So staycation means stay plus vacation, that we know that is very popular for like around 10 years until now. It means that you are stay at your place and you also travel only in your place, and it means like you will explore a lot of the new hidden gem in your area. So for the several impact from the staycation that we mentioned here, from my point of view, I think three factors that is really impact a lot for the make it more tourism resilience, and also can help to overcome for the pandemic over the world, and it also can become one element to contribute the global strategy for the tourism. So first one that we had to raising a lot of the local value awareness. It means that a lot of the hidden gem now can be bottomed. And the second thing that we can avoid for the traveling, and now you can see we very limited for the traveling. And the next one, that when we're raising a lot of local values, we also have a lot of the economic benefits. So here, like I'm saying in the beginning, we have to change only two things when the pandemic comes. The first thing that we have to change our lifestyle. And the second one, that the people have to make a new demand or new product to satisfy our demand, because the traveling demand is there. It cannot disappear when the pandemic is there. So for this one, we also say like better quality of life, that we should have to thinking how to make the staycation will be more efficiently. So we also give an example and quite good case study that you also can take a look and inspire for your project. The first one we say about the rethinking circulation. For this one, we get the project from the Gangnam in Seoul. So they make it a big building block with a lot of the multi-function here, and in the core they make a lot of the big tree with a lot of the vegan and tree and a lot of the relaxing area where the people can work and can play and can cook and can make the community society in this area. The second one that also I think it's a very how do we say, it's a very easy to see and to get it in European. It's a flexible use for the space. So this case I'm taking from the Barcelona, where they make the street to become the side street where the people also can walk and can play and can relax for avoid the have to stay inside in the house. And the next one is the smart use of material. So this really very good for the new generation, that they also can contribute and make some new products to help and to contribute to make it more valuable to this. And the next one is the have to respect and the local social inclusion. I think here is the National Museum. So this museum, they concentrate about the vulnerable people, the handicapped, that the people cannot go easily like a normal people. So they make the museum like a flash, so everybody can easy to get in and to sharing with the environment. And also another example, when I go in Italy, I also can see that now they make a big project that for the blind, the people that they get blind, they cannot see anything. So through the 3D scanning, they can touching on the model, and they also can have the same feeling with the historic of this building. So it's really makes sense that we have to think. And the next one is the wellness. So this project we take from the Singapore in the center. So this also may be the uninspired, because yesterday my group also discussed about the Ho Chi Minh City, how we make the balance between the natural and also the built environment to be balanced. So here they also make some tree become the natural, and they raising a lot of the insects and also make the natural ecosystem for the insect and also the other one. And they use the solar energy for the night lights. And the last one I want to highlight the seamless technology. So it means that we want to apply and to using efficiently technology to make our home or our office or our accommodation become more flexible and more efficiently. For that's all that one, we also propose in our project that we make the integrated platform where we can make the balance with the quantity and quality. And we also encourage the innovation in the local environments, and also create and explore and share the flexible local tourism. So it means that when the people, they more understand about their city, and they might bring the local to be the global. So we also break it into 3 components that we are developing here right now. The first one we promote with the art promotion activity, and we concentrate in the Gen Z from the 50 to 30 years old in Ho Chi Minh City. And we want to make the city branding and building the city branding for Ho Chi Minh City through the art exhibition, music performance, wine tasting, food tasting, to make the identity, and also they really understand and make alive the hidden gem. The second one, we try to make the technical application, and we do with the combined with the art tech, or we call art tech fusion through the art street VR or road to school platform, make some safe for the kids on or make some tourism app where we can combine with the AR VR for the rain experience for the tourism. And we also have to rethinking urban space where the design and the planning, and so the other people make the integrate and to make the redesign for the city, how to make it more flexible. And here to sum our activity that we are proposed and we are doing from the 1st January 2021 and for the whole 2021. And here you also can see some app that we make in develop, apply the AR to become more real experience for the tourists. And this product we are not concentrate and not serve for the tourists. We serve for the local people. So make them really understand their local area and make it more benefit. So that's all for the 50 minutes. I cannot say much. So I hope that you also can get some idea. And if you have any question, you can raise in here or in the chat. And after that, we also can follow and support. Thank you very much for the listening.
Thank you very much, Tuan, for your presentation. It was a perfect introduction. You have positioned the topic of staycations really well, and you've also explained the problem statement really well. You have shown us different dimensions, different aspects related to staycation, and even went to suggesting some solutions. And you are already trying to make innovations based on this problem that we are currently facing. So thank you so much for your interesting presentation. Next up is Professor Duk-Soo Cho from Hangdong University. Professor Duk-Soo Cho is a professor of urban design and planning fields at Hangdong Global University in South Korea. And he's also an urbanist, leading several international urban projects and housing studies. And he particularly enjoys trips abroad and working with global partners to lead the paradigm of sustainable smart city into emerging world cities. Professor Cho, we are looking forward to your presentation about urban and architectural design for tourism in a changing world. The floor is yours.
Okay, hold on. Well, thank you very much for beautiful introduction. Yeah, and I want to talk about in this section tourism architecture and design changing. Actually, like I want to more focus on like something like pandemic, how our open space and the cities are changing at the moment. So what is some kind of proposal so I can talk about some like more pandemic related issues in the open space. As you know, like there is like globally there is a lot of actually cases, infection cases, almost like 110 million cases around the world, and also like more actually infection happening in the world at the moment. So maybe you guys actually experiencing kind of different pattern or kind of change in the daily life. Even today I have many class, I have like or almost like 4 classes finished today, or actually by online. It's too tired for my eyes, you know. So something like we have a kind of very radical change after pandemic. So physical, social distance is a kind of very big keyword in this era, and stay at home. So there is a kind of shock phenomenon in this period. You can say switching online, age, home life sourcing, ongoing health, and changing pattern, and knowing the digital. So something this kind of happening for hold on. So there is okay, how has pandemic changed the movement of the people around the world? There is some like statistics there, like more people, like around 40% more actually activity in the park. So it means like more people try to go and visit the park, almost like a 40% increased. And also like a work or school or something there is actually decreased because all actually convert to the online. So it means like we need to actually redefine and more interesting in the public park and open space. Everybody don't want to stay at home, right? So we need a more kind of a play and exercise, something recreational activity in the public space. So how we can redefine the open space in this kind of pandemic? So we need to actually carefully understand, and also like we need to actually understand people's behavior in the open space like this. So so this is a kind of brief keyword how we can make understand the trend after COVID. So untapped disrupting cultures, accelerating digital transformation, increasing consumption in the residential area where people stay, and also like importance of healthcare and sanitation issues, and also ventilation, lighting, and also personal mobility is main actually keyword. So how we can consider for urban space and architecture in this kind of keyword. So there is more actually adaptive reuse. We need to redefine the place. It means like we need adaptive reuse and flexible spaces or interdisciplinary approach to figure out the issues. So kind of a new concept for home, self-sufficient neighborhood, mixed use, and the functions. Also, like we need a green, green mobility. For example, like more people want to use car, no more public transportation. I don't like a bus in metro, too dense environment inside, right? So more people want to use the car, but think about everybody use cars, what happened in the city? So we need like something green mobility and the logistics, also like some resilient urban actually infrastructures. So I think this is a very important keyword, density, how we can redefine the density. Think about a traditional urban planning paradigm. Everybody think about like, okay, complexity, high density is kind of one of the sustainable ways. And also like think about TOD, public transit, like oriented development is one of like every urban planner, nobody denied this is important. However, after pandemic, we should reconsider, we need a low density of city, or we should ignore the public transportation? No, I think we need to actually still keep these keywords in the urban planning and open space design. And then how we can figure out the density, I think this is very important. So for density is very closely related to land use, how we can use the land. So think about like some beyond the functional separation. So mixed use is one of kind of like one of paradigm to make a workable environment or something. And also this diagram showing like something a transitional density study. So the right side, there is some like more kind of integrated or mingling kind of different programs together, green space and functional buildings and open space. They have like created some interaction between the inside and outside more dynamically. But this is a more actually mixed use, compact neighborhood concept, something like this. And yeah, so nowadays in the European country, maybe in Belgium also or Paris, they're talking about some 20-minute neighborhood, which is a more kind of very dense and mixed use actual concept. And also how they define kind of a 20-minute neighborhood, because this is also very important for mobility issues. Try to decrease kind of long distance trips and try to figure out all our daily activity within our kind of daily kind of a circular in our town and in our neighborhood. So or urban facility like shopping mall and the retail, school, and the working place is all in near our neighborhood. So like so this is kind of a big effort to try minimize the kind of mobility by some like the car or something. So Paris, they call like a 15-minute neighborhood, something like this. So this illustration talking about kind of very dense and very compact and the integration vertically and horizontally connected. So that's why this kind of concept emerged in the city with the pandemic issues there. Also, I said mobility issues. There is a kind of like in mobility can be one of a big kind of a new solution. So there's entrepreneurship to suggest the kind of new business with the kind of personal mobility issues. So low density of a public transit separate but together. So smart traffic and road system and green personal mobility and new forms of logistics. So people use a drone or something, you know. And also bikeway is kind of one of the popular around the European cities. And also Korean city also like try to use the more actually bike culture and the bike behavior, some bike using. So also there's many startups at the moment in Korea also in my country. So as you see, even like some people use the drone. I mean like something like still experimental actually approach. Yes, as I mentioned, the bike is one of actually very easy installation at the moment, but there is also some experiment for the personal mobility in the infrastructure and combined with the bikeway. But there is still some argument between so city authority and also people, because personal mobility they will actually allow personal mobility in the bikeway or not. There is a big actual argument actually in our society, because the policy and law is not ready to accept the personal mobility. So now riding the personal mobility in the bikeway illegal in Korea. So something like a transition period, I guess. In terms of open space, public open space, yeah, there is kind of some like a radical design to showing the personal distance rules, but I think this is kind of temporary. But we need to think about how we can even like keep the social distance in the open space. So I think this is very common photo in and how we can use the public square. So more people actually coming out to the open space, right? So it's getting more kind of a higher density in the open space. So how we can reorganize the program on the open space in the public square, how we can use some like yoga. You can take a look at some like recreational activity there. And also there's some small performance and also like outdoor kind of event with some like a setting. So this is a kind of some configuration of, because there is higher higher demand of the public open space use. So we need a careful or delicate arrangement of programs in the open space. There is also like some washing hands on the public park is also one of very critical issues, and also how we can combine with the landscape and also sanitation issues together, because particularly like for touch issues, even some restaurant actually put some like hand-free door button, hand-free door button, the hand. So try to minimize hand to hand or something like hand to the machine or something. So they try to put the machine something like this. So this kind of open space installation, some of the like sanitation issues is also one of a proposal. And outdoor dining, yeah, in the street level, also some like plaza, and this is also in Korea we try to have, but now this is winter season in Korea. It's too cold, so everybody wants to stay inside for the dining. So so anyway, but this is a kind I think one of a proposal how our streetscape will change. Yeah, so this is a kind of open space. Yeah, and also street market. Think about street market. Street market is also like one of the critical issues. So people just enjoy the shopping in the street level, and more people, stores, retailers actually coming to the street level and try to put some like, so cityscape or like a streetscape is changing and changing and changing now. So yeah, and there is also like some in the architecture, even though actually tourists can actually visit in this kind of emergency kind of the module for the corona check or something. In Korea, we have many infections, so there is actually a light architecture is getting more popular. So we have many kind of infection tests, like a corona test, every park and every actual open space there. But this is one of a kind of a lightweight architecture. It's popular in Korea. And you can, I think there's many design proposal around the world. So you can take a look. Home design is also one of very critical. I got a very romantic story. There is a balcony couple in Italy. So finally they got married. They met in the balcony and, like say contact and sing a song together. Finally they got married. Oh, it's very romantic story in the COVID pandemic issues there, right? So I think the balcony is very important. And also if there's a low density, we can meet, right? We cannot meet, right? High density balcony can say hello together. Hey, how are you? So they can throw the cookie there and then get and something. Yeah, that is possible. So home design, yeah, how we can redesign the home is very important. So expansion of housing scale, adaptive reuse, and private outdoor space. Also, so we can, there's more kind of balcony alpha room or something like this. Also, there is kind of a smart home, so they can special technology to detect virus or something. Something in Korea, we actually have this kind of system, some house or some public house. Also try to integrate the green and the housing together, something like this. So there is a quite famous actually project there. So almost workplace is also changing. Try to, yes, kind of, coming out to the outside, or also social distancing in the work environment. Commercial activity, yes, as I mentioned, outdoor, yes. So this is the last slide. So when I actually talk about and also prepare this presentation, I thought about something like high density, how we can redefine the high density. High density is conflict with the social distance, right? But actually, we should keep the balance, how we can make creative ideas to catch high density and also social distancing together. So this is very important in open space and also design or challenge in the pandemic issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe, for your interesting presentation and for showing us indeed different uses of space and how the use of space is changing because of the pandemic. Yeah? Indeed, we need to understand the trends in order to maybe revise our urban design and architecture strategies that we already know. You've also shown us some changes in daily life organizations in public space as well as in architecture. And thank you for showing us your romantic side today as well, Sho.
Yeah.
I'm honored. Okay, this was a very interesting topic again. Now the next presenter is B. Pleevoets. Professor B. Pleevoets is a senior researcher in the research group TRACE at the Faculty of Architecture and Arts of Hasselt University in Belgium. And her research focuses on adaptive reuse theory and also various conceptual strategies to intervene in the existing fabric. She is the co-author of the book Adaptive Reuse of the Built Heritage, Concepts and Cases of an Emerging Discipline. And at Hasselt University, she teaches several theory courses on adaptive reuse, and she also coordinates the International Master on Adaptive Reuse. And she's currently working as a postdoctoral fellow of the FWO Flanders on a project entitled Reusing the Ruin. Professor B. Pleevoets, the floor is yours to explain heritage and tourism and notions and examples of urban regeneration. Thank you.
Thank you, Els, for this introduction. So in my presentation today, I will elaborate on the role of adaptive reuse of existing buildings and sites as a means for urban regeneration, but I will focus more specifically on the creation of parks and urban green spaces within heritage sites. So in that sense, I elaborate a bit on the previous presentation, in which we learned that actually the use of public parks has increased with 40%. So in that sense, it felt a relevant topic to address today. So parks are an important element to improve the livability of a city, and are also attractive places for recreation and for social interaction. And the creation of places of leisure that are attractive to tourists as well as to locals, or to my feeling really key in enhancing tourism in all its forms. Okay, sorry, I was too quick. So adaptive reuse, so just to give you a brief introduction to the topic, actually, is the process of transforming existing buildings and sites for a new or a continuous use. And the examples actually move from the transformation of a formal industrial site to a museum for contemporary art, or the ruins of a Baroque church transformed into a university library, or the reuse of infrastructure such as tramways, train tracks, or highways to recreational activities as a park, for example. But adaptive reuse is also a way to look at the built environment, which holds the middle between the tabula rasa approach on the one hand, in which buildings are designed from a white sheet, actually, and on the other hand, the strict conservation, which freezes the existing in a historical condition. So adaptive reuse presents actually a way to look at the built environment, questioning which elements can be reused and which need to be transformed. Well, I have a bit of problem with with changing the slides. So besides a strategy to rehabilitate individual buildings, the process of adaptive reuse also holds potential for urban development and regeneration. So looking at the existing fabric with the idea of what it can become is an important aspect, actually, also for contemporary planning. And in Belgium, this led to a series of wonderful projects, and an example is Sea Mining Genk. Genk is a city that developed around its mining industries, and when the mine closed in the 1980s, this did not only lead to the large unemployment in the area, but also strongly affected the urban realm, as the mines were literally also the focal point of the city around which all other functions were organized. And the regeneration of the site actually included the demolition of several structures to create a central square, but also the reuse of some of the most iconic buildings for cultural and commercial functions, as well as constructions of new buildings, such as, for example, an art school, which is also located on the site. So the site is not only an attractive tourist destination in the region, but it also created a new focal point in the city and strengthened the local identity of Genk and the larger area of the mining industry. But I really don't understand why it always switches to slides at the same time. So the expansion and rising population of cities today create an increasing need for green public spaces in the city, as we already learned in the previous presentation. It is actually usually difficult to find free spaces in cities, and therefore actually one starts to regenerate abandoned or underused areas, such as former industrial sites, waterfronts, rooftops, or obsolete transportation infrastructures such as railway tracks or highways. And one of the first examples is the regeneration of a former industrial area into a park, is the Gasworks Park Seattle. So the project was developed in the 1950s, and it was a project by the landscape designer Richard Haag. And the park is located on the site of a former coal gasification plant. And because it was the only plant of this type, actually, it was decided to preserve some of the machinery as a memorial for the industrial history of the site. Here you can see an image of how the site looked before its transformation into a park. On the left, you can see the master plan. On the right, you can see the park. So the design is very simple with green lawns, several paths for biking and walking. And then in the center, you have the preserved machinery. In the picture on the bottom right, you can see two sheds, which are also preserved, which hold some recreational activities. A more recent example is the Landschaftspark Duisburg North, designed by Peter Latz, who has a very interesting oeuvre, so it's definitely worth looking into. The park was developed over a very long period of time, so starting in the 1990s up to 2002, but even more recent new interventions have been made there. So it included the preservation and reuse of some of the existing buildings, other industrial structures, or preserved more as a sort of landscape element to organize the space. Here you can see a plan of the area. And here's some pictures. So the area actually serves as an area for recreation in the region, which attracts tourists from other parts of Germany and also abroad. And where the region was previously famous for its heavy industries, it today has become an attractive area because of its large green parks with very good infrastructure for biking, hiking, and lots of other cultural events, sport places, etc. And as you can see already in this picture, the relationship which is created between the former industrial elements and the natural elements which are inserted, or more poetic, very different actually than in the earlier example of the gaswork park. Here you can see some of the buildings which are preserved and reused. And these are just some images which show you the atmosphere and the interesting relation between the greenery and the industrial side, where in some areas the industry is laterally, or former industrial elements are literally overgrown by nature, and the very scenographic way that the site is actually opened up to the public, and also the relation which is sought between artistic projects as well. Here you can see that some of the former infrastructure is used as a space for climbing. Another example back in Belgium again is located in Antwerp. It's the Parochial North, a project designed actually later than the project in Germany. It was a project by the association of Bernardo Secchi and Paolo Vigano, and where Duisburg actually developed as a rural area, and in some spots look more like a forest actually than a park. Parochial North is clearly an urban park which is open towards the city, with sport fields, open lawns, but also without the dense vegetation that would hide certain areas from the view. And this gives you some impressions of the park, which really feels like the city which is actually continuing in the park. Some of the sports fields which are located at the border of the site. The bike lane, so it's also used as a transportation area for bikings. And some of the sheds, former sheds, which have been preserved and are used, for example, in summer as a summer bar. And then other buildings which, of which just the facade is preserved as a sort of reminding element of the former industrial area of the character of the region, and a completely new sports infrastructure which is developed behind it. So the site actually was located in the middle of different neighborhoods, actually separating these neighborhoods initially because the industrial site was inaccessible. Nowadays, to transform this inaccessible area to a public park, actually the neighborhoods are now more connected and can all actually profit from the existence of the park in this area. And here you can see a night view, so also there the idea of creating a safe feeling is strengthened a lot by creating architecture that really works as a sort of light barrier also at night. So in Seattle, Duisburg, and Antwerp, the transformation of a former industrial site into a park also changed the status of the historic fabric, so to say. So from an abandoned and unattractive and inaccessible park, it has become a symbol of the history and the identity of the area. And the last example that I want to show also elaborates further on that, which is the High Line in New York, which was created around 2000, so in the same period as the park in Antwerp was developed. And the High Line was actually abandoned since many years and very spontaneously developed into a green area overgrown with weeds, but inaccessible to the public. So when the decision was taken, here you can see some images of how the High Line actually was operating. It was a tram line which was running through Manhattan, New York, but which didn't really follow the streets, but had a very different way of going through the city, which created an interesting relationship between the line and the buildings which were there. So just some other pictures. So as I said, the High Line actually, when it was unused, developed spontaneously into a green area, but inaccessible to the public. So when a decision was taken to demolish the structure, actually the public reacted against it and actually wished to preserve it because it was a significant symbol of the history of Manhattan. And this picture actually became the symbol of the action by the locals that really fought for the preservation of it. And then there was a competition organized, first a call of ideas, which then led to the decision to develop it into a park. And then there was a design competition for the park, and the winning team actually took the existing state of the High Line as an inspiration to develop a new vegetation for the area. So here you can see the unique relationship which is there between the High Line and the built fabric. And here are some images from how the park looks like. So some of the tracks which are preserved. Yeah, so I also have to notice actually that beside a positive story, the High Line also illustrates the many changes that come with this type of project. So firstly, its maintenance costs are very high, especially as the green is only embedded in a very thin layer of earth. And secondly, also due to its success, certain parts of the High Line have become overcrowded with tourists, which limits the use by the locals for who this park was actually intended. And a third issue is actually that the property prices alongside the High Line rose significantly, which led to gentrification of the area around the park. And this problem of gentrification actually is not a new one. Also, with the creation of Central Park in New York in the late 19th, early 20th century, property prices of the lots surrounding the park was actually enormously. It is said that it actually exceeded the costs of the creation of the park, so that it was actually a sort of gain, economical gain. And also in other projects, such as Parks for North, actually this aspect of gentrification seems to be the case. So because this only gives a very brief introduction to the topic, I included on my last slide just some suggestions for further reading. So if you within your group actually want to work on the design of parks in former areas, you can maybe check these books. Many of them are in the library, or most of them are in the library for the students in Hasselt. But they're also available online on Google Books, and they include many other examples that might be inspiring for you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Bea, for this very interesting and presentation full of inspiration. You have shown us beautiful examples of adaptive reuse projects and urban open spaces. And it's clear that we can reclaim built-up area to make use of the space to make open spaces, green spaces in which the presence of heritage adds value. And at the same time, you've also pointed at the challenges that it can lead to. So thank you very much. Okay, I think we're ready for our next presenter now, and that is Oswald Davis. Oswald Davis is an associate professor in urban design at the Faculty of Architecture and Arts at Hasselt University in Belgium. He is the coordinator of the research group Spatial Capacity Building. And in this group, he explores themes such as strategic collective learning, serious participation, autonomous transformation processes, and also the gamification of civic participation. And he will explain us a little bit more about participatory design and local tourism. Professor De Vries, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. 4 lectures in a row. I hope you can stand for one more lecture. Okay, take control. Let's try to make this work. Okay, so I would like to tell some of the Flemish students, hopefully this lecture will ring a bell. Otherwise, you have not been listening very well in my lectures. So tourism needs parochialization. I will first explain the concept of parochialization. It refers to one group dominating a public space. And this is an example of the city where I live in Antwerp. We have one tiny Chinese street. It's a street full of Chinese shops and restaurants. And we as a non-Chinese people like going there because it feels exotic to us. It's something, colors we don't know, or smells we don't know, and food we don't know. And each Western city has a street like this, has its own Chinese streets, and tourists really love this. It's something fresh, it's something new, it's out of the ordinary, out of the everyday. And if you think a bit further on it, how tourism works, it's what, it's in fact built on. It's a map of Italy, and you can see here not even a street being transformed into the street of the Chinese. No, it's even complete cities which are transformed into one identity. The city of the pizza, the city of the volcano, and so on, the city of the grapes. And it's this parochialization of even complete cities dominated by the makers of pizza, or I don't know what they do on a volcano, the people of the volcano. So they get one identity, and this one identity makes it attractive for tourists to go there because they can relate to it, or because it's clear for them what they can find there. And so, because of this, some authors have been claiming that parochialization, which is according to a lot seen as something negative, like in fact, public space should be open for everyone at all times. No, they say it's not necessarily the case. It could be sometimes okay that one public space is dominated by one group. And that even makes it, this group, as you can read here, sort of this paradox, the dominance of one particular group does not preclude the public domain experience, but rather produce it. They claim you even need it to make a city exciting, that you have these kind of places in your city. So not only for tourists, but even for a whole city to work. So, okay, let's start to thematize places. Let's start to brand streets as being Chinese streets, Jewish neighborhoods, the rival neighborhoods, the place for Jappies, so that you start naming, and this naming makes urban life or an urban place exciting. So if you still follow with me, if we now move to the theme of this whole conference, or this whole seminar, it's about local tourism, staycation. So, okay, the map of Italy works if everyone can travel to Italy. But if you can only travel to within your own country, or even your own city, then after a while, I think I've seen my Chinese streets. If I go there every weekend, it's not exciting anymore. Or the cathedral, we have a cathedral in our city in Antwerp. I can visit it 5 times, 10 times, but yeah, maybe then I've seen it. So maybe the question is, how can we use parochialization, or so the domination of places by one group, to make that or to make sure that local tourism or staycation remains interesting? How can I keep my own, make my own city interesting to remain a tourist in my own city? And that's what I've been philosophizing a bit about for you, to hopefully it triggers you a bit. And our first strategy, it's 3 strategies that I've been coming up with to introduce other types of parochial spaces. So one is, you could start to dramatize existing parochial spaces. I don't know, maybe it's a bit what B has been talking about, but you take a banal space like here, the harbor of Antwerp. I mean, it's an industrial area, it's ugly buildings, it makes noise, they produce pollution, it's a lot of traffic. I mean, it's really not where you want to spend your spare time or go on and recreate. But the demand for public space is so high in Antwerp. I mean, like in every big city, the demand for public space is high. So they anyway are imagining at this moment, how could we make it anyway a recreational area too? So how could you work there and at the same time recreate there? So they're introducing bicycle paths there. There are small spots of green in the harbor, and they're labeling it nature area. So they're trying to see introduce green networks into this harbor. So a space which is in fact banal, dangerous, really not human friendly, they're anyway trying to do it, to turn it into, or also allow tourists in there. So that's one thing. We've also, with our own research group, trying to do this a bit. I mean, maybe you recognize colleagues here, but these are residential areas. So it means residential subdivisions. So only freestanding houses where the only thing you do there is you live there. There's no working. There's absolutely no interest of people not living there to enter there. But as some sort of an artistic project, we imagined, what if you would organize a camping in there? I mean, the streets are very big, there's a lot of green. What if you would organize a camping and in that way introduce maybe more public space in these areas? So again, maybe another thing would be, maybe we should see our residential subdivision, our really banal residential environments, as a tourist destination. And how could we do this? So we've been imagining subdivision safaris, or maybe industrial areas, geocaching in an industrial area. So one strategy is, all the banal areas we have, how could we make them interesting for tourists to visit them? That's the first strategy. A second strategy that I have been imagining is, oh, I was too fast, is to introduce temporary parochial spaces. So not to open up existing parochial spaces like the subdivision, like an industrial area, but to introduce temporary parochial spaces. And here you can see an extreme example, Tomorrowland. I hope it's known also to all of you. It's a festival, creates really a China Street, but then times 10,000. So for atmosphere, it's really exotic, but it's for a short period of time. It's for 10 days, you introduce a festival in your own city, in your own country, making it exciting, sort of creating an extreme parochial space of something different, where you can participate in as some sort of tourists. And I guess you're familiar with similar temporary parochial spaces, but being more moderate. I mean, in Antwerp, we have something called the Summer of Antwerp, where during the summer months, 2-3 months, they artists, musicians, theater makers invade, let's say, abandoned, underused places in Antwerp, and in that way make us as inhabitants look differently at our own city, but also, and they do that by introducing like strange, unfamiliar activities in these places. And in that way, it remains interesting for people to come there for being a tourist in your own city. So that's the second strategy. We don't open up existing parochial spaces, but we temporarily create new ones. And that brings me to my third strategy, which I didn't find a really good name for, but I labeled it Parochializing existing public spaces. You have an existing public space and you introduce a new function by which you sort of privatize it partly. And this is an iconic example of this strategy. It's in Zurich on an existing square, which was a bit underused, not really attractive. What did they do? They introduced a welding station there. So a very, I mean, it's not really considered an activity that that entertains people or that has a recreational appeal, but next to it is a cafe. And when I visited with students, architecture students, I think 5-6 years ago, it was fascinating. You have your coffee, and in the same time, you're entertained by people welding, which is in fact not an entertaining activity, but that's in that place, it worked like this. So an hard activity, you claim a particular part of a public space, you cannot access it anymore, but it gives something back because it becomes entertainment. Another more extreme example for the Belgians among us, hopefully they know it, it's the Abattoir in Brussels. So it's a meat market in Brussels, but it's of such a size, and the diversity of shops and markets there is so big, because Brussels is a diverse city, that it becomes a tourist destination and an attraction too. So a market, meat, I mean, I wouldn't consider it as attraction, but because the size, and now also because of the design around it, an everyday activity becomes attraction for others. Again, you privatize a piece of public space, it's for the meat people, it's a market, but it gives something back as an attraction to others. So these are a number of strategies that I could imagine, like how we could keep tourism at home interesting. But just like we also mentioned, all these new strategies might come with a cost. I mean, there's a problem. Parochialization can be so much, so the domination of one group can become so extreme that really others don't feel comfortable coming there anymore, because they feel, I mean, I'm entering a private space here, it's no longer mine. Let's say if in the Chinese streets, they would also, I don't know, start doing things on the street, or it could be the difference could be so big that you don't dare to go there anymore. And then it becomes a private space, then you have a problem. And also what Dee has been mentioning with the adaptive reuse, it could trigger gentrification. A process could become so successful, the Summer of Antwerp, you start visiting places you haven't seen before, people start interesting, want to buy property there, prices rise, and you cannot enter there anymore. Crowding, I mean, we had huge protests if we in the subdivision proposed to start up a camping there. Because, I mean, it was their privacy. You could not do something in their street. It was their street. How could you imagine doing something in their street? The crowding, I mean, there's an image or a newspaper article on Tomorrowland. I mean, there are quite some neighbors who don't like Tomorrowland, because even though it's temporary, it's a huge invasion of tourists for a short period of time in their space. So there are a number of serious problems also to this approach of local tourism. In new spaces. But I mean, also hopefully the Belgian students still recall this. How could we address these problems? And that's a concept which I like a lot, is simultaneous presence. So as long as you make sure that in each space, even though it's privatized or partly privatized by, let's say, Chinese shops or by Tomorrowland visitors, as long as you leave room for other groups too, there is no problem. So each space, as long as you can be with multiple groups participating in this space at the same time, you will have a good city, or you will have a good urban fabric. And that's where participation comes in, that you need to know who are the users of your space, what are their needs, what are their limits to how far do they want to go. And if you know that, then you can start designing for these types of spaces. And that brings me to the last one, and it links a bit also to some of the things that Sho has been mentioning. How do you design for simultaneous presence then? So how do you, for example, allow tourists in your residential subdivision without that it becomes too much? How do you allow tourists in your harbor and without them blocking the functioning of your harbor? And it implies one thing: hierarchy. I mean, the residents come first, the harbor comes first, the tourists come second. So you're a guest in a residential subdivision, you're a guest in a industrial area. It also implies distance. I mean, you should design for distance so that you're not, I mean, suddenly standing in the front garden of these people. You're not standing on the property of these companies. So you need to have distance. The same with Tomorrowland. There needs to be distance in who live there and the temporary visitors. And distance implies readable transitions. This is where I can go and this is where I should stay back. This is where I can be as a tourist and can come into conversation with inhabitants. This is where I have to stay out. So you have to design borders, and it's the border zones that become interesting for this simultaneous presence. It also implies management. Someone needs to take care of this, that there is no conflicts or that there are only productive conflicts among these groups. And this management you also need to think of or design for as a designer. And maybe I end with a bit of a, I don't know, I couldn't come up with a better metaphor at the moment, but it's like in a theater. You're a temporary guest in a theater play. You observe what takes place in the residential subdivision, but you're a spectator and you have to follow some rules. You can come in some parts. Or you're a guest in a home. You can enter some piece of the home, but not everything. And there are relations between you as a guest and the host who invites you there. And as long as you respect this, I think this tourism at home will work. Okay, that was my hopefully contribution to this seminar.
Thank you very much, Oswald, for making us think about how to use public space and how to get to know the users better. You've introduced us to the notion of parochialization. You've shared some interesting thoughts with us on strategies like adding drama, events, creative use of spaces to make local tourism more interesting. At the same time, you point at the problems related to it and how we have to keep a balance between everything to make groups coexist in this precious space. It's really important indeed to know our users. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit in our question session after all the presentations. By the way, this reminds me to call the students. This is a call for action, students. If you have questions, please post them in the Q&A box, and Peggy Winkels is there to moderate the Q&A that are posted in the chat. I would like to challenge the students from every country. I would like to have at least one question from every country in the chat box. So please mention the country that you're from and then enter your name, and we will see how many interesting questions that we receive there. Again, Oswald, thank you very much. And then we can move to our final speaker of the day. And this is a representative of the urban planning department at the Bangkok metropolitan area. I'm happy to introduce to you Mrs. Pianut Siri. She is the Director of Urban Design and Development Division of the Office of Urban Development and Renewal, Urban Planning and Development Department of the Bangkok metropolitan area in Thailand. She has a deep insight into the specific development plans in improving deteriorated areas and responding to changing environments in an urban context. And she will be assisted by her assistant in this presentation, but first, the floor is yours, Mrs. Pianut Siri.
Thank you, Hans, for introducing me and my organization. So perhaps you are not familiar with such a long name of my office. Either way, I'm pretty quite sure that people in Bangkok know our work in urban design and development very well. Chapter Sky Park and Ang Canal, both are landscape improvement projects and our outstanding masterworks. They are the parts of the master plans of the urban renewal of the Old Town Area 2032. The urban renewal aims at improvements in economic, physical, social, and environmental conditions of the area, and tourism has become the added benefit later. In the city design, to achieve this end, we cannot do it alone. We work with communities, civic organizations, and public entities to develop policy, projects and programs at the neighborhood and citywide scale. for experience of our research work like it on urban renewal and urban design, our official Miss Sunisa Minoring, she is an urban planner, will present to you all in deeply details. Miss Sunisa, could you please start the presentation? Thank you.
Sunisa, I think you have to unmute your microphone. We can see you, but we cannot hear you. At the bottom of your screen, there is a mute button, I think, and you can unmute. Or maybe Viet, I don't know if you can help Sunisa to unmute. Okay, we can see you now. Yes. So at the bottom of your screen, you can unmute. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I can control the PowerPoint now. So let's continue the presentation. As you know that Bangkok is located on the Abattoir River. Abattoir River is a river in the city that divide city in the left side is the Panakorn area and Thonburi area. It is located more than 200 years ago, and you can see that from the picture of the most of people is depend on the river and the tunnel. And from the city development, it's transformed, Bangkok transformed the canal city to the canal city to the depend on the road system, and we found that the main problem of Bangkok is traffic jam. It's terrible traffic jam, but by the way, for the maritime development, it could be changed city now to more compact city. And when we focusing on the inner city, like it located in the Abattoir River that I mentioned you before, so we found that in the old city is very density, and it's very high density, but the lack of the infrastructure development. So we're making the master plan for the development in historical district that in the inner city, and we setting the vision, the purpose of this plan for the diversity and more opportunity for everyone, for not only the local community and also the commercial business in this area. And we making with the three strategy. The first strategy is the regeneration area, and second is the linkage each area together with the new transportation and the green transportation. And the last strategy is we will making or encourage the unique area or district to make more development, community development. As the master plan for the urban regeneration, we making like the project area, and we making the planning system with the design guideline and community plan. And of course, the public participation is the important process that make this project successful. And we have many meeting, like the formal meeting and informal meeting in many levels of the collaborate with the university, with the leader of the community or the youth in this community. And we divide the area in this industry into 7 areas. But now, today we will focus on the Ratanakosin and Thonburi in the area number 1 and area number 2. In each area, we making more detail about the master plan for the plan or the concept of the cultural heritage, the land use planning, the landscape improvement, and the transport improvement, and the infrastructure planning, utility, communication, and also the community and tourism development. I will focus on the industry is that for we have a long time ago, most of people depend on the Jatia River and the canal. This canal, you can see the inside in this area is a man-made canal, and it's a important historical canal, and that we making this canal not only for the useful life, but also the commute in long time ago. Yeah, you can see this the fourth market is like the signature of the Bangkok and the local community. And from this the plan we making the plan of the transport system to making the new green area and encourage like the economic and the tourism development. And we're making the pilot project in this area, the four pilot projects. The pilot project number 1 and number 2 is under construction or already finished construction, and we're making like the design guideline of the building. You can see that it is the Khong Ang Canal. You can see that building is very crowded and is a illegal building. You cannot notice that under this construction is a historical canal, and we became this area to the public area. Yes, you can see from this picture after we became this area, and we making the landscape improvement plan, and also we cooperate with another department to planning the infrastructure system, and for the in each process we making like the public participation process. We making a plan together to the design in this area to finding the significant area or the unique or the cultural heritage in this area, and making a design guideline for the building. Yes, and the local community they would like to make like the street market activity. So we're making a plan together, and we have the collaborate from the many departments and many community, and we making like the activity together, like prepare this area and design of the street art, or making the commitment of this area. And this is this area use like the festival, the main festival in Thailand is a Songkran and Loi Krathong festival. It is a big festival, so we making we plan this festival in this area and make this area to all the public. and we making like the cultural heritage map together, and also like the street art we making, or we thinking together with the artists and with the owner and local community. And you can see that they're doing the kayak in this canal, and we have the cooperate with the private company to join project together and making the activity for is a fee for the tourism and of the people. Another project is the landscape improvement in the Thonburi area. Another part from this Ong Ang area. That project is working in the planning and construction project in the same time, and launch that project in the same time. From the you can see this we call the Chao Phraya River Park project. This making from the abandoned infrastructure. That infrastructure was built maybe 60 years ago for the main transit, but this project didn't finish, and this constructor was abandoned because of the public community and because of the meeting that we making the focus group in this area, and one of the leader of the community that noticed that this have like the abandoned infrastructure, why didn't do anything for this project. So we acknowledge, we notice that all, and we making the design for the walking bit and the cyclist bit. And this area, this project can connect this area can connect community together. And we making the activity after finish the construction process, and we try to encourage or support the activity in this bit, and this area can be like the new landmark of Bangkok now. Yes, is it all of my presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sunisa, for this presentation, and also thank you to your director again, Ms. Pianut. You can mute your microphone now, Sunisa. Thank you. You have shown us how the city of Bangkok is, or the metropolitan area of Bangkok is carefully planning the city, and how you take care of participation processes to involve the community in planning, how you have attention for cultural heritage, and also how green and open spaces play an important role in your city planning. Thank you for sharing this information and for showing us this insight into Bangkok. Thank you very much. Okay, we have heard 5 very interesting presentations now, and this leaves us another 20-25 minutes for questions and hopefully also answers from the panelists. We've prepared some questions, and we're still looking for questions in the Q&A, questions of our students. Dear students, do not be afraid. I can imagine that after such intense presentations, you do have questions. If you want to know something from these experts, if you want more information, if you need more information for the challenge that you're facing in the workshop, please enter your question in the Q&A section. But for now, maybe we can start our panel discussion with a question to Anne. To Anne, you were the first to present here. I have a question for you focusing on the local differences versus the global strategies. Actually, you are the key person in this webinar, because in the workshop that we're now organizing for 5 countries, we want to define global strategies to make tourism more resilient. And you are one of the few people who have visited all these countries. You know all the people present here. You visited all the places. All these places are different, and they all have their own culture. And we are trying to define global strategies. how can we merge the two together? What are the differences that you see? What are the similarities that you see in this challenge?
Okay, thank you very much for your very challenging question that you give it to me. Really very difficult to ask to give the answer. When you, yes, I'm lucky that I get the chance to visit different countries that are presented here, and also several countries that I stay very long time, like Thai. I stayed there for 2 years for my master degree, and also Belgium, and also. But I think all of the country or all of the city, we have our own unique and our own identity for this city. So I think now for the global status, we don't want to combine all of the unique become one. We still want to respect the unique of each country, and we want to make the local life bring to the global. So from my point, for the global status, we should have to go one with the how we make it more flexible. It's mean like when we had the pandemic, so everything will be changed, the lifestyle and everything, and how all of the local, all of the city can turn back to serve for the local people and efficiently. And on the way, when we can open this, and we also can make it open up it to more welcome with the international tourists. So for that kind of the one with my point in also in our ISCM, we want to try to make, like I was sharing earlier, we try to make the one platform where we can integrate everything. So the platform, or we call the tourism app, we make it for our local people, not for the tourists. Besides that, we also try to make some design and project with the title, Be a Local, Be a Tourist. So it means that when you are a local, you want to expect something because the traveling is a demand is there. So need to satisfy with your demand. And if you have to stay in the country, how you satisfy with the demand with the global standards. So it has to be bring here and add also the identity and also the other services. It means that it also make the new motivation for the young generation. They make a new product or new tour. So, and also the other hand, from like in our platform for the e-platform, the people also can make their own tour. So it means that they also can make their own tour to visit different place, and also they also can call and integrate with the other people, same with their purpose to go in the same tour. So it means that own thing there. So we want to make the integrate platform where we can integrate all of the demand and all of the local hidden gem that may know in somewhere to integrate. So I think from my point of view, the most important thing that we have to really understand when we make to desire planning, how the local demand and how the global and how the other people, and we also can integrate it and make it more flexible. So it's also one term of the resilient tourism and also resilient local economic development.
Okay, thank you, Tuan, for this answer. Of course, I know it's a difficult question, so it's probably only part of an answer. But what I do remember is that you stress that the identity, the local identity, is very important, and at the same time, we can use technology to understand that identity, to understand the demands, and also to create solutions like platforms to share this identity with each other. Yeah.
But the one more thing that I want to highlight here for the technology, it means that with because now like right now, I think for the young generation in the Asia, especially in the Asia country, they love the technology, they use smartphone. So how we can bring them to the local area with the social activity? We cannot bring them there because if they go there, they still go with the smartphone. So our attractive that bring them there, combination between art and tech, they can play something with tech and also the other activity. So when they understand that, they can have the motivate to know about the history and the other thing and make the local alive. So it's our status to make this.
Tuan, I think we all want to come back to the real world as soon as possible, but for now we are stuck with this virtual world. It also has advantages. Maybe we should try to find the best of both worlds. Okay, thank you. I want to move on to the next question now. The next question is for Sho. Sho, you have shown us a very interesting presentation with strategies on the urban scale, also on the architectural design scale. Maybe I want to focus on the last or the latter one. So at the level of the architectural design, due to the pandemic, we have started to use spaces differently. What was once normal use of space, like eating inside a restaurant, is now considered to be almost dangerous. How can designers deal with that? How do you think we should deal with that as architects and designers?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Because in my country, for example, we are kind of very sensitive, particularly in the indoor activity, like dining or think about the restaurant. So I heard like many countries close the shops or bar or restaurant, but actually our government try to think about the local economy, right? If you close or like shop something, they're gonna be crazy for the like local economy. So we have a in terms of a policy, like our government try to control, you know, for example, like restaurant cannot allow a group who has more than 4 people. They just maximum is 4, so they can occupy only 1 table, and also like try to control the density in the restaurant. So only just like they guests occupy only 50% of a whole space. So that's nowadays like our designers try to, I mean like some interior designer or something, commercial designer, they try to put the more actually terrace or more actually open space together, which is combined with the indoor and outdoor. Because indoor now actually they allow only 50% of the whole actual space. And then how we can compensate another 50%. So there is some try to actually extrude some space in the outdoor space. However, there's a big challenge in the winter season because you know, this is too cold or sometimes rainy and you know, the kind of a snow or something. So nowadays
sounds like Belgium show.
Oh, Belgium show, yeah.
Yeah.
So nowadays, like government actually, but there is a very high demand of kind of delivery. Actually, you know, there is a lot of actually demand for the delivery service. So nowadays, our government try to make a balance between kind of local economy and also like something security from the corona. But in terms of design, there's some new model to kind of, you know, half and half model, like indoor, just a 50% outdoor space. But I think there's sometimes, okay, after pandemic, what happened? Maybe they will have more benefit because kind of 100% they can occupy inside and also like very beautiful outside design together. So usually like in Korea, we don't have a lot of kind of outdoor activity. This is not actually common culture, unlike a European country. But I think in this period, I think our also like some dining culture and behavior is getting slowly changed. So more a combination with the indoor and outdoor together, something like this. So that is some kind of challenge. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sho. I agree with you that designing outdoor spaces together with indoor spaces and having a balance between the two becomes more important. And I think it is beneficial also for the future, even without pandemic conditions.
Sure, yes.
We could benefit from better outdoor spaces. Thank you very much, Sho.
Yeah.
I would like to move on to a next question to Professor B. Plevits. B, for you, maybe a question focusing on the program. It's clear that heritage can contribute largely to the identity of a place and that it even can define the identity of a place and that it makes it attractive. And there are different strategies to deal with heritage. You've explained this, conservation, restoration, reuse, even demolishing areas. But in the region of Belgium, there are numerous successful examples of old buildings that are being reused or adapted to serve another purpose. But quite often these buildings are attractive to tourists because they offer a unique environment for authentic experiences. But do you also see a limit or a danger to this strategy of conservation or reuse?
Yes, thank you, Els, for this question. I already referred to the risk of gentrification in my presentation, and also Oswald elaborated further on it. So the investment in heritage actually can also attract other types of investments in the neighborhood, which is a positive dynamic, but which also has the risk to push out the initial users of the site, the initial inhabitants of the neighborhoods, for example, because property prices are rising. Another risk is what we call often Disneyfication, or the commodification of heritage, to use a difficult term. So it actually refers to a process in which heritage becomes a commodity that is regenerated, restored, with the primary aim to attract tourists. And this can sometimes lead to a strategy on conservation or restoration, which does not really focus on preserving the authenticity or the authentic values of the heritage, but instead aims to present it as attractive and comfortable as possible, which on the long term, of course, undermines the whole concept of preserving heritage for future generations.
Yeah, so maybe there the real how to say, the real goal is to just to make money and to have yeah, to attract funding instead of really preserving and conserving the actual heritage values. It's more to put it to value.
Yes, but it's of course searching for a balance between a commercial and economical viable approach, because of course it's necessary to somehow also develop an economically feasible strategy, because otherwise it's impossible to find means and money to preserve this heritage site. So it's really, yeah, a sort of finding a delicate balance between, yeah, economic interests and also just interests for contemporary use versus preserving the heritage values in the long term for the future.
Again, I can imagine this requires careful research and also careful design in both ways. Okay, quite a challenge. Thank you very much, Bea. Thank you.
Welcome.
Next question for Mrs. Pianuzziri and also for her assistants. That's a question focusing on policymakers as stakeholders. In spatial design, designers have to take the clients and the end users into account, obviously, but there are also other stakeholders such as policymakers and policies and strategies at different levels and in different fields. Now, being part of the planning department of the Bangkok metropolitan area, what advice could you give to our students from a tourism policy perspective? How does the post-pandemic and the element of staycation impacts or has to impact their thinking? Do you have some advice for our students?
Thank you very much. This project is the hope of urban renewal. The success of this project is due to the cooperation between BMA and with other stakeholder authorities in creating quality public space. In this kind of success that is rarely seen in Thailand, the BMA has to work hard across both vertical and horizontal connections, with it always a challenge of urban rehabilitation. This is especially true in the Thai context, in which the central government structure is complex and fragmented. We often see the various centers of the budget and power of organizations. The owner of the education budget as an organization, the owner of the construction budget as an organization. But this project became the obstacle of the compartmentalizations by negotiating and collaborating. From now, if anyone said that this kind of project is too difficult to do or it's impossible, for them to look at these two project development. And if view from both the professional and academic perspectives, I think these projects may be large in size, but the project has a large importance as a catalyst for new initiative for an opportunity for urban regeneration. And I think about it, the SkyPark can change the way people look at the public space and leveraging government investment. In this, it can be said that this project is the first time that designer and developer have come together to repurpose abandoned structures to create modern use. I think the already thing that we can do is engineering and driving safety standard for the construction. When the design was finished, the BMA has already prepared budget to invest this redevelopment. I consider that it be important milestone in the transformations of Bangkok. Maybe Kun Sunisa to supplement.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything that you want to add, Sunisa? Okay, I think it was clear, Ms. Pianwu. Thank you very much. Indeed, I understand that we have to bring different organizations, different stakeholders, different segments to the table and negotiate about plans. But I also understand that these design challenges that we bring to our students can also inspire the government and be a catalyst for future changes. So thank you very much for your answer. And then lastly, I have one question for Professor Davis, and it's relevant as well, related to the previous question. It's a question focusing on the design process. Professor Oswald Davis, you have emphasized how important it is to know the users and how participatory processes or approaches can help to define successful projects in urban environments. But students in architecture, they do not always have the possibility to engage with the local community, especially not in this case of this online workshop and in this pandemic situation. What can students do to embrace the idea of participation in their projects? Do you have any suggestions?
Thank you, Els, for the question. It's not an easy time now, so we have to reinvent ourselves as participatory planners and designers. And those who of the students who attended the seminar Urban Design, they know very well. So, but maybe what we normally do is we observe practices. No, you try to find out, okay, which groups are there in, let's say, public space, what do they do? And we try to be very specific. I mean, we're not talking about inhabitants and tourists or children, but we try to be specific about, okay, what type of inhabitants? Is it an inhabitant who was born there and still lives there? Is there recently an inhabitant who moved in recently? Is it a young family? So be very specific about who you observe and their practices. And if we know that, what we try to do when we engage with them is we try to define values. What do they value? What does a good public space mean for each of these groups? And yeah, because we're spatial designers, we try to be spatial. And then here comes the piece that the students from the seminar already know. We try to translate it into a manifesto. The manifesto that you as a designer can then use, like some sort of values, which the groups that you have been meeting and talking to find important to them. And then what we still add, okay, you're not designing for the now, you're designing for the future. So we'd like to then challenge our students or ourselves, like, okay, what could be valuable in 10 years or in 20 years from now? And then it has to do with being inclusive and so on. But now, okay, you cannot do this. So what I would propose to you is, like, maybe you could, I mean, I think you could imagine them. You look at your own environment, the environments that you could access, and try to imagine them just to challenge you as a design group. And maybe what you could sort of discuss in your group is that maybe each of you could explore another scenario of actors. Let's say, what if we imagine these actors, we imagine these actors, and then I think you could have interesting conversations on among or within your group.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for this advice. Indeed, in our brainstorm session, this workshop, our students are challenged to really well, come up with strategies, but also to define the ambitions, the goals, the values that they want to achieve, and then think about the spatial interventions that can be related to that. And indeed, it can help to imagine the end users and to explore different scenarios. So thank you very much for your advice. Okay, this was the first round of questions. There's not much time left until the end of the webinar, and I do not see anything in the chat. Peggy, are you there? And can you help me?
Yes.
Did you see the question?
Yes, I received questions, and there are too many for the time left.
All right.
So I will start with one specific one, and I think it's for Professor Davis, since it refers to the creation of parochial spaces. What is the relation between the creation of parochial spaces and the production of consumable and simplified identity? I think that's what Professor Plewitz was referring to as a sort of Disneyfication. Where is the balance?
Maybe you can help me out here. That's not a. I think B already has maybe referred to it from an economic perspective or from a heritage. Like you can destroy the heritage when you go too far. But in a city, I think, I don't know if it's exactly an answer, but I think, for example, if you look at a city and you have your shopping streets in your city, and that's also an example I use in class. I mean, in a shopping street, it's so much focused on shopping and let's say this commodification that there's only a commercial use allowed there. And if you try to do something else in this space, I mean, either the shop owners will come and kick you out or the shoppers will kick you out. And then it went too far. So that's, you can see, but if there is still in a shopping street room for other uses, like just, I don't know, playing your music, with a youth movement, doing an activity there with children, then I guess it's okay. So as long as there are multiple groups allowed in the same space, then I think you didn't cross the border yet. But if it's all about shopping and buying, then I guess you went too far. I don't know if that's an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oswald. It sounds like a good exam question, no, for your seminar? Okay, Peggy, are there any more questions in the chat?
Yes, a very broad question, an open question to all panelists actually, is how do you think we can cope with the boomerang effect? That successful touristic experience bring too much people, and that they damage the situation for the inhabitants, for instance. It's more an open question. Is there a way to avoid the boomerang effect?
Is there any volunteer in the panelists to answer this question? You can open your microphone, start talking. B, yes?
Maybe else I can elaborate on it from the heritage perspective a little bit. This is often the case, for example, when a site is protected as a World Heritage Site, then it becomes so much interesting for mainly international tourism also, that local people are really unable to continue benefiting from the site. What happens there often is that there is a sort of regulated, that there are some rules applied to the use of the site, and that it is reserved for local users during particular periods of the day or the week or the year. For example, only allowing tourists in late afternoon or particular days in the week or the year, and this can sometimes help, although it's somehow a sort of artificial way of organizing it. I think it's one of the possible initiatives that can be taken.
Okay, thank you, Peggy. Any other panelists who want to share a thought about this specific issue? How to keep the balance, how to avoid the boomerang effect? or how to avoid yeah, too much success? I guess it's a difficult question, and it will be a challenge for all our students to keep the balance. Yeah. Okay, Peggy.
Still, two more questions in the Q&A. I don't know if it's visible for everybody. Just yeah, it might be interesting to look at those questions also.
Yes, I have a very direct question to Professor Stroh. Do you think it's feasible to build a tower that houses a whole residential area with all its utilities as an answer to the pandemic, for instance, or as an answer to the crowdedness in the streets?
Build resilient vertical cities. That's maybe the question, yeah.
Yeah, build resilient vertical cities.
So question to me, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, in Korea actually there is a lot of high-rise apartment. This is kind of a high-rise apartment country, so we are very familiar with the vertical life. But actually that's not possible. I think all facility in the vertical towers, something like before Le Corbusier tried to suggest in the beginning in the modern era, so try to make some like, you know, like vertical cities concept, and that is actually evolved a lot. However, more people actually, we stay in the kind of a big high-rise apartment, but however, even though there is high demand for the ground level, like a big community activity all together outside, also so like there's a too high demand on neighborhood park actually outside.
Oh.
High floor area, but they really want to actually hanging around in the street level, and also like something like some community park all together. So, and also like a vertical has some limitations to make a whole big community party or some event. So basically they are whole actually coming to the ground level, and then have something like a big actually sense of community all together. So that is actually of something like some apartment try to propose community center on the top of the tower, but that sometimes like some roof park or something, but still they feel like they need the land, they need to step on the land or something, you know. So that is not actually, and also think about the density, you know, like that is only allowable for not whole actually community people. So I think in terms of density, in terms of something like interaction with the nature, the vertical city has, I think, a limitation. That is not ultimate actually solution. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your answer, Professor Stroh. We're past our limit of the webinar, so I would like to ask Pavini to close this webinar. I'm sure that you might have further questions, and for the students, they can post their questions in the Discord chat boxes, and we will try to answer it to the best of our abilities. But for now, I want to thank you, and I give the floor to Pavini to close this webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, Els, and thank you very much for all contributors of our panelists. All the topic idea for the post-pandemic tourism is quite interesting. Actually, it's not just only for the idea of the urban development or the built environment design and planning, but it's all about the inhabitant. It's all about us, that we may need to rethinking about keep the human to be the concentric for any idea for the future development. And further beyond the, most of the time when we think about the development, the balance between the people, the balance between the environment, natures, and also all the elements of the society. We most of the time is imbalance. So now it may be about the good timing to ask us to realize more and keep more emphasize on the essential for all aspects. And in the same time, I think the human capital is quite important during this post-pandemic, that whenever we talk about the built environment, on the other hand, it's also shape our behavior, and also it is about the live and learn and shaping by the built environment. And we can see that the collaboration and the integration among all stakeholders, participatory, is quite important to learn from each other, have the mutual understanding, and have the same vision and mission. I think at the end, to open our idea, open our mind, to be more about create the resilient society. I think this is not only about the technological approach, but it is about to really open, to have the real open platform for everybody to join. Yeah, I think this is quite interesting, and I hope it is very useful for the students to bring about the idea, concept, knowledge, and inspiration to your group working that can be continue on the Miro and the Google Meet on 11:15, right, in the next 6 minutes. I hope you can go to the Google Meet and continue your working group. And thank you very much for all contributing and your time. I enjoy very much. And for the virtual platform for the workshop is quite interesting somehow. Okay, thank you, you guys.
Okay, round of applause for all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move to discuss at the Google Meet, right?
Yes, I think so. So thank you very much, everybody, all of the panelists and participants to join with us for the start 2 hours. Okay, so I think we have the break for 10 minutes and we back to the Google Meet. Okay, see you there.
Okay, 10 minutes break and then we see each other in the Google Meet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.